Hey guys, welcome back. So in this video, I'm going to try and show you how to integrate mouse movement and mouse clicks into your games. And to do this, we're going to need to first implement the interface, then write some code that will capture the event, and then finally write some code that will react to the event. So let's get started. Okay, so here you can see our project from where we left off. Remember, this thing will draw a bunch of triangles and circles at random locations and then move them across the screen. I'm just going to run it for you to remind you of what it does. And there you can see they're moving across the screen, no problem. You can see down here we have calling action performed on a timer. And you can see that these numbers now are actually reflecting the current system time. I'll show you the code that does that in just a second. So I'm going to go ahead and stop it. And remember that we had a J panel inside of a J frame and that we implemented the action listener. The action listener, as you'll recall, forced us to write a method called action performed. I'm just going to scroll down to action performed right here. And here you can see the line of code that actually creates that output in my console. And you can see I've added system.currentTimeMillis. This is not anything you need to do an import for. You can just go ahead and add that to your own code. The current time in milliseconds, I believe the time is measured since January 1st of 1980 in milliseconds, which is why the number is so large. I believe it's a long. And it's useful to be able to see that your action performed is being called and being called at regular intervals. Here you can see the code that loops over each triangle and sets the X location to its previous get X location plus 10. And we did the same thing for the circles, and then we called repaint. So every few seconds I call this thing because I am an action listener. And this is what repaint does. Repaint calls paint component. Here I just loop over all the triangles and the circles and I draw them. Here's where I created that array list. Remember, we wanted to randomly create them in certain locations. And here's where I created a bunch of triangles. And you should have this code from your notes or on your laptop. I'll be providing in the YouTube video a copy of this code so that you'll be able to get yourselves in sync with me. So now it's time to add code that will listen for mouse events. And if you'll recall, we need to first implement the interface for MouseListener. Then we're going to write code that will capture the event that we're sent. And then finally, we're going to write code that will react to those events. So here they are one by one. First, I'm going to implement the MouseListener. I'm going to go right up here to my line that implements. And I will add MouseListener, and you can see after I type mouse, it's one of the first few choices. So let's go ahead and double click that. You can see now that Java's mad at me because I have not fulfilled my contract for implementing a MouseListener. So I will go ahead and have IntelliJ implement those methods. And you can see that a MouseListener interface has several different methods associated with it, not just one like the action listener did. This one has 5 different methods that we are required to at least write the method signatures for, and I'll go ahead and click OK. And down here you can see that all 5 of those method signatures were created for me. So you're probably most familiar with mouse clicked. Mouse pressed and mouse released are basically the first 2 parts that make up a mouse clicked event. So when you click the mouse, you actually get a mouse pressed, mouse released, and then a mouse clicked message. Mouse entered will tell you when the mouse has entered the panel, and mouse exited will tell you when the mouse has left the panel. So that's all there is to it, to implementing a MouseListener. Now let's go ahead and fill in some of those methods. Okay, so if you recall, we had 5 methods that we had to implement for the MouseListener interface. We're mostly going to be focusing on the mouse clicked method here. This method obviously is called whenever you click the mouse. Double clicking the mouse is a little trickier to implement, and I may cover that in a future lesson, but for right now we're just going to respond to a single mouse clicked event. So you can see that this method gets a mouse event as its parameter. And by default, programmers call that event, give it a name of E. If you want to rename that to event, you are more than welcome to do so. I'm going to go ahead and just keep it as an E. And mostly we are concerned here now with recording where the user clicked the mouse. That's probably going to be something that's very important to you when you are playing your game. If they click on an enemy, or if you want to control their movement, or place a tower, you're mostly going to be worried about where did they click the mouse. That information is going to be recorded inside this method, and then you're going to react to that information in other methods. Since other methods are going to need to be able to see this information, and the mouse event is passed to you as a local parameter, you're going to need to create a field. By creating a field, you guarantee that other methods will be able to see the information, and that's what we're going to do first. So I'm going to scroll up to the top of my class here, and I'm going to create, I've already created here 2 new private fields. They're both going to be ints, and one is going to be location of X, and the other is going to be called location of Y. You could also name them location of X click, but I thought that was kind of cumbersome, so I just went ahead and called it location of X. So the way you're going to save that information is inside the mouse clicked event. You're going to say location of X equals, and then the E event dot, and then get X. So that E event has got a lot of information encoded to it, the mouse event that you got sent. Some of the other things we'll be using in just a second, the get Y obviously, but you can also get modifiers to see if they have actually been holding a button down when they clicked. I'm not sure what get click count does, but it might be a way that we could use to detect a double click. I'm just going to choose get X here. And I'm going to do the same for location of Y, and I'm going to make sure that it's get Y. And as you know, I'd like to make sure that my code is well formatted, so I'm going to go up to my code menu here, and I'm going to pick auto indent lines so that those things are properly saved. Just to make sure that I am correctly detecting mouse events, I am also going to, as a debugging measure, go ahead and system.out.println, you clicked the mouse, and I'm going to go ahead and run this code. So I'm going to go ahead and start clicking on the screen, and you can see down there in my console that I do not see the message, you clicked the mouse. And that's because there is one important thing that we forgot to do. We have implemented the mouse listener, and we have correctly filled in the code that will save the location of the X and Y click. Have forgotten to tell the program to listen for mouse events. Implementing the mouse listener alone does not actually do that. You also have to notify Java that you want to be notified of mouse events. That's not something that your program will get as a default. To do this, you need to go into your drawing panel constructor, and we are going to write one line of code here, and that will simply be add a mouse listener. The mouse listener requires as a parameter some sort of program or method or class that can listen for mouse events. We are such a class. We went ahead up here and implemented the mouse listener interface, which means that we ourselves are a mouse listener. And so what we put in here is simply the keyword this to notify Java that we can now listen for mouse events. Go ahead and run that code. And now when I click my mouse on the main panel, you can see that it is now reacting to my mouse clicks. We are hopeful that that field will actually save the information of where we click the mouse. But that's part 2, where you detect the mouse event clicked and or the mouse clicked event and go ahead and save that information. In the third and final part of this video, I will show you how to react to those clicks and to actually get something to appear on your screen. Okay, now that we have filled in our mouse clicked, let's go ahead and write some code that will actually show us what happened. To do that, I'm actually going to go back to our paint component method. Paint component is a really special method. It is called every time the window needs to be redrawn, and it's in this method that you want to do all of your drawing and pretty much nothing else. You don't want to be updating any variables here, changing an array or two. It should just be taking care of the drawing, and that is how you achieve smooth animation in any game. So we went ahead and reacted to the mouse clicked event by saving the location of the click. I'm now going to display that information on my screen, and I'm going to use it. I'm going to do that by using a method called drawString. DrawString is a special method. It takes three parameters. The first is the string that you want to display on your graphics panel, and then the X and Y location of where you want that to appear. So you need G, this graphics context, to be able to use drawString, just like we needed to do a fill oval or a draw line. So here I'm just going to go ahead and G.drawString, and I'm going to put you clicked mouse at, and then I'm going to build this slowly. So first will be location of X there, and then I'm going to add a comma on the screen, and then location of Y. So that will display the string. You click the mouse at wherever they clicked. And then where do I want this to draw? Well, here I'm going to guess a little bit. I believe my window is approximately 800 by 600, so I'll just go ahead and put this thing at maybe 500, 500. Remember, the second two parameters have to be the location of where you want that string to appear. So go ahead and play this, see what happens. So you can see down here, you click the mouse at 0, 0. That's what's appearing because I haven't clicked the mouse yet. You could write a Boolean variable to take care of that. But now when I start clicking the mouse, you can see that it is recording where I clicked. You don't have to draw the mouse location here on the screen as a result of clicking the mouse. You could maybe reset all of the circles and triangles to where you click the mouse. I will leave that as an exercise for you to attempt. Or you could compare where they clicked to a particular target that you have on the screen. Imagine we're writing a whack-a-mole game where they have to click on a location, and at that location is a particular graphic, and they get a score for every time they click it. But that's basically, the basics of how to implement a mouse listener. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.